All right. Welcome to the next episode of Someone You Should Know. I'm super excited to introduce our friends, David and Stacy Whited. We've actually introduced you to them before, but never in this format. And so if you joined us last week for Up for Discussion, Johnny and I talked about the mountain of media, specifically echoing a new narrative in this area of culture that we know of as media. And we were looking for someone for each of these areas of culture where we could interview them as follow-up interviews to each of our Up for Discussion episodes and really talk practical terms of what it looks like to show up in that mountain, and specifically highlight people that we know that are pioneering and doing it in a kingdom way. And this is certainly one of those couples, one of those families. And so I'm excited to introduce to you David and Stacy Whited. I'm going to quickly read to you just a little bit about them. They are hosts of the highly viral show, Flyover Conservatives, featured speakers for the nationwide conservative rally, the Reawaken America Tour, and TV radio guest political commentators. Flyover Conservatives brings you the highest, brightest minds and latest intel in the areas that affect you the most. Your health, your wealth, your freedom, with a worldwide audience of 2 million monthly listeners on over 60 media platforms, including Band.video and Rumble, with over 1.5 million podcast downloads. I'm tired just thinking about it. Guest interviews include Eric Trump, General Michael Flynn, Mike Lindell, Mel K, Lara Logan, Scott McKay, Clay Clark, Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Simon Gold, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, Dr. Stella Emanuel, Bryson Gray, and more. And I will add Johnny and Lou. Flyover Conservatives is sponsored by My Pillow, Z-Stack, Dr. Kirk Elliott, and Dr. Mark Sherwood. Though this is just a couple and a family, an organization that is so well connected to so many people that we want to hear from. And we're just so grateful for just the stand that they've taken over the last couple of years and the voice that they have had in echoing a new narrative on the mountain of media. So welcome, David and Stacy Whited, conservative talk show hosts, political commentators, and national speakers.
Yay! Thank you, Elizabeth.
That's a mouthful.
That's a mouthful.
You do such a good job of welcoming people and cheering for them. And I'm like, it's just me here. So anyway, I left out one of the things that I love the most about Flyover Conservatives, and that is your tagline of wake up, speak up, show up. It just so encapsulates just this Seven Mountain message that Johnny and I are so passionate about. It's really where we overlap in our focus. So welcome. So glad to get a chance to introduce you to more of our audience.
Thank you. What an honor to be with you today. We absolutely love you and Johnny. We've been following you guys for years. And you were one of the highlights. It's funny because you said, and Johnny Elizabeth Inlow on our podcast, you were truly, the first time you guys came on, we were so nervous. We had everyone praying for us. We did a one before we even started recording. We did a conversation with you all, but truly, what an honor.
Benny Johnson connected us.
She did.
On that. It was such a highlight that, that relationship connection is even more, valuable now than ever. And, a conversation is so important because talking to somebody means, number one, like you're quiet and listening. And then, I'm quiet and I listen to somebody else, and you have ideas being spoken. It's like, it's almost like making chili or a recipe. The two come together and you make something that didn't exist before, because now I kind of see what you're saying and you kind of see what I'm saying. And we both kind of come to a new conclusion. And this idea of having conversations and conversing is a uniquely human thing, and it sort of parallels like our relationship with God. We hear from God, but God hears from us. Amanda Grace said the other day when she was talking that she would like to begin her conversations with God, just asking him how he's doing.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I guess that's what you would do in a relationship, isn't it? You'd be considerate of the other person, and you would be engaged with them. Adam walked with God in the cool of the day, and you don't walk with somebody and not talk to him unless the relationship's bad. And so if Adam's walking with God in the cool of the day, it means they're having a conversation. And so from the very first human was engaged in relational conversation. And it's the thing that makes us the most, unique of God's creations, this idea that I could go from darkness, I could go from confusion, like I don't understand. And then you might take something that you've wrestled with, or a loss or a scar or something you've got from your past. And when you share it with me, I might go from like, I'm blind, now I can see, from dark to now it's light. It's like all of a sudden, now I get it. I never understood. Like you opened up a whole thing, category of my mind. And that's why we like to hear interesting conversations.
Yeah.
And I say all that as like a backdrop, because we've kind of come to a place in our world. We're coming back around full circle, where technology took us out of relationships in a lot of ways, where texting sort of has a archaic kind of grunt, caveman kind of, okay, right, but good, got it. You lose the graces of like calling someone, hi, how are you doing? And the things that have kind of gone away. We sort of went to a society. You pull into your garage and the door's probably shut in your garage before you even get out of the car, and you might not know your neighbors. And we're less engaged. We have more Facebook friends, but less real friends. And so we've kind of gotten away from these like conversations because you're so busy. We don't sit down and eat meals together as much. When you do, you see people in restaurants or on their phone, and it's like less human interaction. But there was a malnourished nutrient that was missing there because people craved it. And they craved it in a way they couldn't even put a language to. And podcasts and these kind of formats have brought that back around. And the distaste for turning on Fox or CNN or any of them, and you see four people on there arguing, and they're all sponsored by the same pharmaceutical companies or whatever, and this kind of like and just this anger and name calling. And now you look at the rise of podcasts and these kind of formats where people have real conversations and have the ability to unpack an idea and kind of bring us back to a place of like, I get what you're saying, and I understand something I didn't understand before. And I think that's what's created a move in media, is this missing ingredient. People are so starved and malnourished and almost have like mental and emotional scurvy, from missing conversations with other humans and seeing other humans have healthy conversations.
It's a great point.
So true. And I love it that you just jumped right in with that. And what I hear when you're talking, and what I hear when Stacy's giving her prophetic updates, and you guys, you encompass such a variety of aspects of media because of your spiritual interests, but also your interest in what's going on in the United States, your interest in prophetic things, your interest in facts and research and health, wealth. We said it in the intro. But what I hear most from both of you is how in love you are with the face of God as communicator. And that is the number one, I believe, prerequisite, and we teach in all of our material resources, is that if you're going to impact this area of culture that we refer to as media, how we get and receive information, you have to know this aspect of who God is. It was never meant to be done apart from the knowledge of God. And how did you guys get to this place? I mean, you're a couple, and I know your family's involved. Is this your background? Did y'all both go to school for this?
No, not at all. In January of 2021, I was in my quiet time, and the Lord told me, he said, the people and the resources that you have trusted for truth for so long, you're not going to be able to get it from those sources any longer. And he said, this is the time for discernment. And that was in my quiet time. And then my son, or our son, came to us maybe, I don't know, a week later, a few days later. And he said, our country is in trouble. And he said, if we don't do something as a family to try to help to save our country, he said, my children are not going to be free. And you don't have the freedom that your parents had. We've got to do something. And so we're business owners, and we all set our businesses on hold on the side. And we're like, okay, what do we do? And at that time, the Lord came to us, and with this podcast idea, and he said, I want you to record. And it was just conversations of finding out what is the truth. But he said, every conversation has to have hope in it, because he said, if there's ever hopelessness, then it's seated in a lie. Then you've taken God out of the equation. And so it's been quite a journey over these last couple of years. It's now been 2 years. I can't believe it that we've been
never
doing this
met
podcast.
somebody who'd even been a guest on a podcast before, let alone know anything about it. Like even these microphones, they're now I know they're called a Shure SB7, but I took a screenshot of Joe Rogan and I went into Guitar Center. I'm like, do you guys sell these? The picture of it. I didn't know what they were called or anything else. And we started with just, at a, like some heat lamps from Home Depot kind of thing. And I put that as behind us and sitting on 2 metal folding chairs, and we had a laptop and it was sitting on top of a suitcase.
Well, still this table that we're sitting at today, how much did it cost you?
About $5 at the Goodwill.
We still use today.
Yeah, I think it was like $6.99 or something like that. I got this whole wooden table and just kind of, we're like, all right, let's do the best we can with what we have. And we're putting our own money into it, and our own, time was the biggest thing because it took a lot. And so you had to really put all the distractions to the side and say, we're going to research, because every conversation we went into, we tried to find the brightest mind in the world on that topic.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the areas of interest, but people kind of come into our room through 3 different doors. One is sort of like, what I consider like the General Flynn kind of space, or people with like military intelligence, election integrity, so a lot of like, Carrie Lake and people like that we would interview that were experts in, politics and that space. And then, the other side, is really the medical, because when we began this, there were so many question marks on COVID, and we would see doctors that had maybe 10,000 patients and had lost no one through COVID, and we're like,
but that's not what you're hearing on the news
odd.
Or, coming out of hospitals. You're like, all these deaths.
They got a death ticker at the bottom all day long, of everybody dying. But I'm like, there's a lot of doctors that have like 9,000 patients, have lost 2. It's like, how do we talk to those guys? Because
they have answers.
They're doing something different. And there was 2 doctors we originally saw in California that started our thought. They'd seen 7,000 or 8,000 patients. They put all their data in the middle of the table and they said, here's what we're doing to treat people. I would love to brainstorm with people in Houston and New York and everywhere else. But, this is, right at the beginning of lockdowns, and it got like 10 million views in a couple of days on YouTube, and then it was gone. I've never seen from those guys again. I'm sure they're still alive, but they're not allowed to speak in public. And so that woke us up a little bit, because I thought, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I would want to hear from, people that had spent their whole life in that category of science. Like, they should have a seat at the table. Like, maybe not me, if you see somebody that's just some redneck out there that's like, eat more peanut butter and that'll cover COVID. Like, all right, like maybe delete that guy. But when you have somebody who spent his whole life on that area of science, and he's personally seen 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 patients, through their practice, he should have a seat at the table. When that wasn't allowed anymore, that really piqued our attention, because I thought there's something besides science involved, and we wanted to be engaged in telling those stories. So it was the military intelligence, the medical world, and then really, if God's out of it, then we're out of it. So we had to have really what is God saying? Who's in the spiritual world? Who and that kind of began a journey there. We're trying to find pastors and people like that had something to add to the equation, because we saw a lot of divide there as well. So we've created a platform for people to be able to kind of unpack their view on the subject.
Amazing. I mean, you just read between the lines of all the strategy that you just, stumbled upon, and you didn't stumble upon it, because you, I'm sure, can look back and see this trail in retrospect of how God prepared you for everything that you're doing now, and all that would play into that. And even y'all's relationship and being able to function as a team. And you raised your kids, you're able to function as a team with them. I know they're kind of more behind the scenes here for now. But I'd love a teaser of some of the highlights or things that, at the time that you were going through them, you would have never dreamed that it could translate to where you are now, but how it might have prepared you for now. I know, like, for example, you guys went to Bethel School of Ministry. When you were there, did you have an idea you'd be doing this?
It's so interesting. I was actually one day in school, and they kind of had us all around, kind of spread around the room, and we were just kind of just spending time with the Lord. And during that time, God actually gave me a vision of like a television, and then David and I on that television. But that was all it was. It was a glimpse of something like that. And that's all that I saw. And I was like, oh, that is really interesting. I remember I brought it up to you, and we're like, well, that's kind of weird. I wonder what that meant, but had no idea whatsoever, that we would be
We'd probably done this for a year before we even connected.
Yeah.
That.
that there was any kind of connection to that whatsoever. Yeah. So, there at Bethel, we'd had business experience where we did a lot of training. We would teach and train together. And I really believe that's really helped a lot as well, because obviously the public speaking part of it, but also learning how to work together.
Yeah.
We've done that since we were 23 years old. And, it's been stressful. There's been times literally when we are talking about remdesivir and what was happening in the hospital, especially when all of this was going down in 2021, when the people that we had trusted for so long to save us, we were actually finding out were killing us. That was devastating. There was a lot of times where just a lot of tears. It was like, wow, okay, this is really evil. This is evil. What we're experiencing here, we're coming against Satan, and so there was a lot of those times as well. But I think through this whole situation, our whole family has grown closer together. You said it, our son and our daughter also work with us. Our daughter was a school teacher, and she is with us full time with Flyover. She does all of our graphics. She does all of our social media. She does all of the tracking. She does all the uploading of all the videos. Our son Colton is our producer. And I mean, it's just been an incredible experience to do this together as a family.
The path to where, to go from trying to figure out how to even set up an account with Apple and Spotify, and how do we get that done? And you start calling, so we've always had kind of an open hand to like, God, if you want this pen, it's yours. Like I'll start over and live in a box and build something from scratch with God again tomorrow. Like we've never had a whole real tight grasp on any item or thing or where we live or a business card or identity or anything. When our kids were in high school, we moved to Mexico and lived in an orphanage there because we felt that's where God wanted us, to be. And so we got rid of everything all the way down to Christmas decorations and like, all right, it's gone. And we'll start there with just, a couple of suitcases. And we've kind of lived that way of just trying to be as accountable as possible to what is, to the best of our ability, what does God have us do right now? Yeah. And now that doesn't eliminate the chatter in your head of how unqualified you are for what God wants you to do right now. And you have to really lean on, God didn't need the little boy with the fish and the bread to be a chef. He just needed him to be available and willing and have an open hand. And then like just whatever you have plus God's enough, whatever that is. So we kind of, went down that path and we didn't understand some of the things like censorship that we would, experience. So we thought, if that happened, somebody must have done something wrong. Why would you be deleted off of a channel like YouTube? You must have had something, maybe pornographic or, like, I don't know what would get you, why would you be deleted, for having a conversation with a doctor that's saving lives, and so when we kind of started experiencing some of that resistance, we had to make adjustments that wouldn't have ever had to happen before in this field, but it kind of made us strong. And I think a little bit of our ignorance served us well, because if somebody would have really known what they were doing and they were successful and they'd built podcasts or they built things in news and media before, they would have never gone the route that we did, because it was very unconventional and very we were more like very, very scrappy, and like wiry, and just kept getting back up and fighting. And so we just said, okay, we're going to go to like 60 channels. We're going to put stuff on channels we'd never even heard of. Every place that would have our content, we're just going to go everywhere and fight censorship that way. And then cable networks started picking it up, and different things were on some Midwest channels and radio. And okay, just God would open doors. And we were accountable for doing the best that we could. But you wouldn't have gone that way originally. Like a lot of people that were much better than us got stopped in the process because they're like, there's just too much resistance. And we just didn't know any different. And so we just kind of went through that. Like the idea of like advertising on Google or a Facebook ad or any, like those things are not even available, for us, in
the conservative movement.
in this space. And so, but like in December, there was over 4.5 million views, on our show because it went to so many, places. And we just kind of like, all right, like whack-a-mole, we're just going to be more places than you, can delete it and make it available. And so, but I don't think people would have, everyone we've talked to that knew what they were doing didn't go the route that we did, because they knew better. Because that's, it's not how you would do it. And so, but it kind of worked in this new environment. I think I was listening to a guy the other day talk that was a collector of antiques, and one of the things he collects is he has these radios, and he has a radio that came from, I don't know what year it was, but 1930s Germany, and on the, it's just AM dials, back then, but they were calibrated with the notches of stations you could pick up when you bought it brand new retail from the store. And those are the only radios you were allowed to have. When you bought it retail from the store, it was pre-calibrated to only pick up the state approved signals.
Oh, wow.
And so when you can control the narrative, you can make a lot of things happen, as we, history tells us from that whole, scenario. Evil can't take place where information is readily available, because I do think while maybe man is born with this sin nature, they're not predisposed to participating in evil on a large scale. It only happens in darkness and the ignorance of misinformation and missing information. And when you only have the state approved narrative, then people kind of can walk around in an unknown echo chamber and not even know that there's a counterbalancing, narrative. And so that's kind of what we've come against, this whole time.
Well, and that's one of the things that we teach is that in order to impact an area of culture, you have to go up that mountain in the opposite spirit. And I just see the pattern of, you guys are no one's parrot, you are radically obedient. The pattern is radical obedience to the Father and prioritizing the kingdom of God. So your lens for even viewing things is him and his kingdom. So when you saw something that didn't line up to that, you're like, we care about it because he cares about it. We're going to make a difference. And then you're making your move up the mountain without trying, because you're just following him. And in media, the opposite spirit is opposite of fear. It's hope. And Stacy spoke into that. You continue to speak into that.
Yep.
I would love for y'all to just briefly hit on this. So I listened to an interview that you guys did with Lara Logan. She's another one of my favorite media spokespersons.
Yep.
And I can't wait to see what the Lord does with her in terms of the future of broadcasting, news journalism, and especially the more traditional type that's based on research and provable facts. But I also, she was talking about, I don't remember if it was on your program or another one that I was listening to, but she was talking about like the standard that journalists need to stick to. And it made me start thinking about, yes, the need for integrity, like actually do your research and say things that are true, number one. But there is also room for speculation. There's room for opinion pieces. And I think there's value in both. I love seeing that you guys aren't just interviewing. There's such a variety, because you're willing to listen to what we think of as kind of those in the patriot movement. Some of them are just plain old passionate, Yep. Not that they have done a lot of research on anything, but they have a voice, they care, and they're speaking up and showing up, right? And then you also have the spiritual aspect where you're tracking with the prophetic. What is God saying in the midst of all of this? I mean, you're honoring the communicator, the original communicator himself, but you're also making room for people that are legitimate journalists like a Lara Logan. And I believe those will come more and more as they begin to surface more and more. They're pretty rare and far between. So speak into that. What do you see God doing in that arena with you guys, but also in general in media?
I think what we try to really stick to is having people differentiate when they're talking about what they think and what they know. Because we just had a great interview with the people that they directed and wrote a documentary called Died Suddenly. And Died Suddenly was released on Rumble in November, and it has over 100 million views, and it's over 12 languages in just a short period of time. It's so well done, and they're very factual. And even with them, we had them on there talking about these are all of the facts and doctors and people that they put together in this documentary. And then it kind of shifts into, and they were very clear, I think this all is because of this, and this. And it's important that when you do that, like, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened. Those are undeniable. If I walk in my house, the door's broken at the front, and I'm like, if I walk in and there's my items are disheveled, I'm like, okay, that's odd. Like
Right.
I can probably come to the conclusion someone broke into my home. Now after that point, I can say, okay, that's a fact, that's a fact, that's a fact. Now maybe my son got locked out and he broke the door and came in to do something. Maybe it was a burglar. Maybe it was somebody across the street. That's where I kind of get into the speculation. And that's what we try to really be clear on is these are the things we know. These are documentable facts. This happened. Now, what's the heart behind it? Why would somebody do that? Can you assume motive? Those things, but and keep the speculation from the fact. And I think that's where it gets kind of blurry because you turn on maybe Fox News at night and like, is Sean Hannity doing an opinion piece or is Sean Hannity news?
Right.
Well, Sean Hannity's also brought to you by Pfizer. And so he might speak very clearly on this and he might be a little more muddled on this. And we need to, what we push hard for is we don't want censorship from big media platforms, social media, from the mainstream media, but we also have to be able to self-censor ourselves enough as Christians, as page that we're sharing something true, that we do an ounce of research and like, did you look that up? Did you do something? And some of that weight is in the laps of every individual,
right.
As well, to actually check that and look at that. And what is your source?
Because if you're speaking up and showing up, you just have to make sure that the information that you are sharing or you're also getting out there is accurate as well. And so that's one of the things we try to do through our show is even teach people how to make sure that this information that you're getting or the meme that you're putting out is actually accurate and not something from 10 years ago or, something that somebody just happened to make up. And so being aware of that to make sure that we're not spreading misinformation, to the public as well. All of us as patriots, as Christians, I think that's important. One thing I want to add to that, because you mentioned it earlier, I love the prophetic. I love hearing what God is doing because he's always at a higher level. We're flying at, 10,000 feet or 5,000 feet and he's flying at 30. He knows everything. And so I love the prophetic because every week when I get together with him on Wednesday morning to put together the prophetic report, I get so excited because I'm like, look at this, look how God is speaking. And he'll say something to Johnny over here and something over here through Amanda over here. And, you got Robin over here and they come together and they're like puzzle pieces. And it's like an Easter egg hunt for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting because he knows exactly what's going to happen. He hasn't fallen off the throne. He's not chewing his nails. None of these things have caught him by surprise. And it's critical that we have that aspect of it in our show because that's the real truth. We're getting out some of this information and that it's true in the natural, but what is God saying in the supernatural? And ultimately, that's the most important.
That's right. So good. So well spoken. I totally get why God has picked you guys for this time in history to do what you're doing and excited to see where this grows to. I mean, I think it's beyond what we can, any of us imagine right now, and it's needed. So how can people find you guys? Sounds like it's everywhere, but
Rumble's a big platform. We have our own app, you can download the Flyover Conservative app, and that's a, kind of a censorship-free way to do it. The full format of everything's available there, and it's categorized, and there's even, community section for like prayer teams and that pray for things. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there, but
I think that's probably our very best. We invested in that, but it's free, to everyone that's listening. And it's been a really cool thing for us because it has created a community. There's a lot of people based on their region, they can communicate, hey, this is going on in my area, and they can kind of find out about that. It's also great because if somebody's listening to it and they have to stop and go do something else, it takes them right back to where they left off. They can take notes and it's absolutely free. So it's called, if you go to theflyoverapp.com, it's just a great way to be able to track our show. And like even the prophetic report that I do, it's on so many different platforms, but sometimes it's time restricted. It can only be 57 minutes on certain platforms. And so I have to cut out certain parts of the prophetic report. I'm like, no, you can't cut out that one. That's the most important part.
God said that.
I know, you can't take that out, but it's 57 minutes.
God.
Yeah, exactly. So when you go to the Flyover app, you get the whole thing, versus some of the different platforms, you're going to get 57 minutes.
I did not know about the app. I'm excited about downloading that.
Yeah, we love it. It's been a really great resource. We're really happy with that.
Very cool. Well, all right. So one last question. because, the people ought to know. Your clothes below what the camera shows. What are I know you're probably wearing your My Pillow slippers.
Stacy is for sure.
I am. I got them on.
That's funny. That's funny. We
both have on jeans.
Yeah, jeans.
Yeah,
you're actually dressed for your.
We've done too many interviews where the person actually stood up and we're like, "Oh, I didn't want to see that."
Yeah, that did. That did happen.
We always
once.
make sure that we have on. Yeah, we're fully dressed. No pajama bottoms, nothing.
We are professionals. Well, thanks again for your time. And we just look forward to this journey and seeing God echo a new narrative through y'all and many others like you in the Mountain of Media. So proud of you. We bless you to just continue to fly over the promises of God, but under the radar of the enemy.
Amen.
I was encourage people though that don't. I mentioned earlier about the mental chatter. Don't let what you've done in the past or what you think you're capable of get in the way of what you feel God's calling you into. And there's a grace involved. And even if you missed it, like maybe God wasn't calling you into that, you just heard something wrong.
Yeah.
He's almost, it's like, I would rather fail thinking I'm doing what God asked me to do, and walk out on the limb too far than to stay safe, hide behind the water heater, playing it safe, doing it is playing it safe, like just lean into, because what you can become in the process and the doors God will open, and you're probably a little more gifted in areas maybe you even thought. So there's, a lot of areas in education and science and religion, places that you can move forward in. And your voice is needed, your presence is needed, and you're probably more qualified than you think you are. And you plus God is more than enough to move forward and do what he's called you to do.
So good. Stacy, would you pray over those that are listening?
I would be honored. Thank you. Heavenly Father, I just thank you so much for every person that is listening to this show, God. We just ask, God, that you would just be with them as they are walking through this process and figuring out how do they speak up and show up in these different mountains of influence, that God, that you would just guide and direct them, that you would put people in their path that maybe that they would network with that are going to help them. If they need finances, that finances would come their way. Anything that David and I have gained over these last couple of years, we just freely give to each person that's listening here. And God, I just thank you so much for Elizabeth and Johnny. I thank you for their ministry. I thank you for their family. We just pray blessings over each person. And God, we just continue to look at you. We say yes and amen to your plans. And we give you all the praise and all the glory. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right. Well, hopefully we'll have you guys on another time. We'll look for a good excuse.
We would be honored.
Thanks,
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
All right.